Hello, I'm Gary Mancini, and I am the writer, the director, and the producer of Guilty Conscience. I just want to take a moment to say thank you to every single person that has watched the video on YouTube in the past kind of couple of weeks. It's astounded us, it really has. I mean, it's an old film. And last week my wife suggested, why don't you stick it up on YouTube? I said, well, no one will want to see that. It's 18 years old. Nobody will want to watch Guilty Conscience. So she said, well, put it up anyway and see how it goes. I went, all right, okay. So that's what we did. We put it up on YouTube. It was a kind of a YouTube premiere. It had been hanging around on other kind of platforms for a little while, and it's got their views here and there. But yeah, that was the first time it went up on YouTube a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, we're astounded by the number of people that actually sat and watched and liked the film and commented on the movie and have come back to us with, all the positivity. So we're absolutely grateful about that. So thank you very much for every single person that sat and watched that film. We really do appreciate it. I hope also that you've had a chance to go and check out another film that I put up last week, which is called Alone, which is another one of our kind of made on no budget kind of horror movies. So yeah, I hope you've gone and checked out Alone. And next week we're going to be putting up a feature. Well, it's almost a feature-length film. It's 45 minutes long, so it's much, much longer than Guilty Conscience and Alone. And it's called Suspicious Mind, and that is the first movie that we ever wrote, and obviously the first movie that we ever shot. What I thought I'd do in this video is just tell you a little bit about the background of Guilty Conscience and where it came from, because I thought you might be interested in how the story came about. The story came about, I was on a train with one of my actresses, Sydney Howard, and we were travelling back from London. I think we'd actually gone to see John Carpenter's Halloween at the Prince Charles Cinema. So we were travelling back on this train from London. We were in the midst of shooting Suspicious Mind, which was the first movie, and she said to me, so, what's next? What's next after Suspicious Mind? She goes, have you got something in mind? And I was feeling a little bit cocky, a little bit arrogant. I'm the film director, she's the actress kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, I've got something in mind. Of course I've got something in mind. And then she went and asked that question. She went, what? And it kind of stumped me a little bit. So I thought, quickly, I need something along the same lines as Suspicious Minds. And this title just blurted out of my mouth. I said, yeah, the next one's called Guilty Conscience. Oh, that's great. That title sounds fantastic. What's that about? And that's when my ego immediately deflated, because I said, I don't actually know. I just got the title at the moment. So that's the only thing I've got. So at that moment, Guilty was kind of born out of an accident, born out of a bit of arrogance on my behalf, in that I thought I was going to go ahead and make another movie. And I literally, at that point, didn't know what the next movie was going to be. It was just, I was concentrating on finishing off Suspicious Mind. There was a lot of work still to do on that movie. So I wasn't thinking kind of a couple of steps ahead. I was just thinking, let's get this done and then see where we are and see how this turns out and then see if we want to make another movie. But yeah, so this idea of Guilty Conscience, I took that home. I got home off that train. I sat there that evening and I wrote it in a book. I wrote Guilty Conscience, next film, ? And see how we go with that. And I sat around and I thought, well, what would be a guilty conscience? Initially, I thought the idea could be something to do like as a sequel to Suspicious Mind. I thought maybe we could take the character from Suspicious Mind, which I can't tell you about because I've gone and made a mistake, haven't I? What I've gone and done is I put Guilty Conscience up first, which was our second movie, and I should have put Suspicious Mind up first, which was our longer movie. But there's a reason why I didn't do that. And the reason I didn't do that is because Suspicious Mind is 45 to 46 minutes long. And for a first time out, for people who didn't know me, I thought people aren't going to sit there and watch a 45, 46 minute long movie on YouTube. So we'll put Guilty Conscience up first. Fee wanted to put Guilty Conscience up first anyway. So we thought we'd do that. And of course, that's the way it worked out. But yeah, so I thought there was a character that was in Suspicious Mind, again, which I can't tell you about too much because it's going to premiere on Monday. I thought we could take his story and elongate it, take it to the next level after what happens in Suspicious Minds. Maybe he's got a guilty conscience. Maybe he's dealing with something that went on in Suspicious Mind. And I thought about it for a little while and I thought, no, that's not really working for me. That's just kind of dragging out the story of the first film. So I thought, well, why don't we get a brand new cast of characters, a brand new situation, and see what Guilty Conscience suggests to me. Now, as it happens, my wife and I went out shopping one evening and there was a photograph of a car on the front of the evening newspaper. And it looked very similar to the car that we had at the bar. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I said, let's get that newspaper. She said, why do you want to get the newspaper? I said, well, I think I can use that. I think I can use that in a story somewhere. So we got it anyway. We took it home and we kept it safe, put it away. And I thought, what if there's a guy that kind of sold that car to somebody and it caused an accident and then he's got a guilty conscience because of that accident, and we'll see how that plays out. So that's pretty much how kind of Guilty Conscience came about. That's the basic germ of the story, is that everything kind of came about literally by accident. The fact that I'd blurted out the title on the train, didn't even know what it was about. And the miracle of finding the newspaper with that crashed car on the front, which looked very similar to our car. And I thought, that's my key in the story. The car looks similar to a car that we've got, but it's not the car that we've got. So that's how that part of the story came about. And then once I had that, I had the story. From memory, because it is a long time ago now, it didn't actually take me long to come up with the story for Guilty Conscience. What I knew is that I had to have this character who was going to sell this car, and he was kind of arrogant about the whole thing. He didn't care that he'd sold it. He knew that there was going to be a brake failure, or knew there were problems with the car. He just wanted rid of the car so he could buy another one. It's kind of been a kind of a bugbear on his back kind of thing. He's been carrying this car around and it's been causing him problems for a long, long time, and he just wanted rid and he didn't care how. So I knew we had to have this kind of arrogant, kind of full of himself character who didn't care who he sold it to, what happened to them, and that was the situation. Also, he was kind of partnered with a character who was on the opposite side of the fence, which was his girlfriend called Kirsten. And she was more caring. She cared about the situation. She didn't want him to do these kind of things. He was always doing something a little bit dodgy, and she knew that that's what he would do. So she was kind of his Jiminy Cricket on his shoulder kind of thing, if you know what I mean. So she was kind of telling him to do the good thing. And then we had these two other characters who were Helen and Sean, and they were the kind of couple who came along and bought the car. Now, initially, because we had the darkness of the kind of the Jason character, and obviously the kind of the light of Kirsten, I wanted these two other characters to be slightly off, to be slightly creepy, which would set Jason's mindset off. So what I thought of, do you remember in American Werewolf in London, you've got that yuppie couple who have been murdered by the werewolf, and they're sat in the cinema and they're just extremely happy even when they're dead. And that just gives you kind of creepiness. It kind of gives you that weird kind of creepy feel. And that's what I wanted for these two characters of Helen and Sean. So when later on in the film you see them, they're all happy-go-lucky at the beginning, and then when you see what happens to them later on in the film, and if you've seen Guilty Conscience, you'll know what I'm talking about, they become the complete opposite. They become polar opposites. They become dark, moody, menacing, and some of that kind of horror is injected into their characters. So those were the characters. So I knew we had those key characters, and then we had a couple of other incidental characters who came along. We had kind of Jason's best friend who met him in the town centre, and another one who met him at the gym. So there's loads of little incidental characters that you put in along the way just to build the mood and the feel of the thing out. So yeah, once you have those characters in place, I put them all in the notepad, looked at it all, thought that's great, yep, that works well. And then I put the whole story along with these characters into an outline, which is like 2 pages of A4 paper kind of thing. It just shows you the flow of the story, shows you where anything's going wrong or if everything's going right. And I must admit, looking through the outline, once I had the outline, there wasn't too much to change. There was a couple of little things I tinkered with, and then I looked at it and I thought, yeah, that's pretty good. And then once I get the feeling that it's pretty good, I take it and I put it into the final draft, which is the script writing software, and I write the script and I write the dialogue. And then we just tweak things here and there, whether it fits their characters, whether what they're saying is truthful as their characters. What you don't want is for a character to start at the beginning being kind of arrogant and cocky, and then for them to become funny later on in the script when it's not in their character, if you know what I mean. So you kind of make sure that everything flows nicely and make sure everything fits as it should. And then once we had that, we could go out and start thinking about locations and getting the filming underway. We had our own equipment, we had our own camera equipment, and for locations what we did is we went out and we approached certain buildings. We went up to Southampton car park and said to them, we need a scene where we need a character to kind of fall off the car park. And, we're not actually going to throw anything off for real. We're not going to cause any problems. We'll be very clean, very tidy. They were absolutely helpful. They said, yes, come along and do that. We don't mind at all. As long as you're respectful to the property and everything, then you can come and do whatever you like, which was wonderful because, we really struggled to think where the hell were we going to get this from. But they were, yeah, come and do it. They were great. Come and do it. And then we had some of the other actors worked out to get a gym for us. They knew people who owned their local gym, so we were able to film in a local gym. And of course, then we went and filmed out in town centres, which was kind of open land anyway. And that's the way things worked out. So with the script and everything in place and with all the locations looked at, what I had to do next was to go and find the cast. I knew Alexandra Kelly because I'd worked with her on a Star Wars promotion down at our local cinema, and she was absolutely lovely, very helpful, very friendly and chatty kind of girl, and she works hard. And I knew that I wanted her in this script because we couldn't use her very much in Suspicious Mind. I think she was an extra in Suspicious Mind. So I wanted to give her a bigger role this time around, and I knew she'd be perfect as Helen because she's got such a lovely kind of bubbly personality. I thought she would be fantastic as that character, and she, you know, as you can see from the film, she was. Everybody else I think I got from something called Mandy.com, which is a kind of a casting sheet kind of thing. So I went on there and I said I need an actor aged between, say, I don't know, 25 and 30 to play the part of Jason. Same for his missus, between the ages of 25 and 30 to play Kirsten. And then, of course, we needed somebody to play Sean. Obviously, what we should have done, given Alex's age, is skew a little bit younger with Sean. But Gavin came along and he gave such a cheeky, very kind of confident and funny performance as Sean that I thought, no, he's got to be in the film. He was great. So that's how we ended up with our main cast. And then we obviously have the incidental characters who come along, you know, like I said, his mate in the gym, and the other guys that are kind of filling out the story. He got his best friend who he meets in the town centre as well. So yeah, it was kind of, you know, that was our tiny little cast. We got a tiny little crew working around the thing, and then we just set out to make the movie. What I would do is I would say, right, we're filming everything in the Waterlooville Town Centre this day, so every single shot that needs to be done in Waterlooville Town Centre, we're going to do that, and that's what we did. Rona's Castle scenes, everything at Rona's Castle, we'll do that, get that done, fine. And obviously the car park and everywhere else. And you shoot out a sequence because you make the most of your locations. So if you had like a number of scenes taking place in Waterlooville Town Centre, you do everything in Waterlooville Town Centre first, get that out of the way. And then you do everything at the car park, get that out of the way. So you just don't have to go back to these locations. You don't have to reapproach the people and say, can we have the keys again? Can we come in again? And do that kind of thing. The only reason you might have to do that is if some of the shots don't turn out, if the sound isn't good on the shot, and that kind of thing. So yeah, we were very, very lucky. You know, for the most and for the majority of the time, everything worked out great. The shots that we were getting back were fantastic. I would take them after we do the shoot, and I'd put them straight into the edit, and I'd edit them together, and I'll see if there was anything missing, any angles that we were missing. But we were very lucky with Guilty Conscience. So I think everything kind of worked out the way that it should. So once we finished shooting Guilty Conscience, the next step was to go through the edit. We were looking at an assembly edit anyway. I was doing as I was going. So as we were shooting, say, the car park scene, I would bring the car park scene home over the weekend, put it into the computer, chop it all together, put it together, see how it flowed, looked for any mistakes in dialogue or any mistakes in shots or angles and stuff like that that were missing. But luckily, everything kind of came together. Everything worked very, very well with those shots. So we had an assembly edit not too long. So, you know, I looked at it, thought it was great. And the next step was to go and get some music put on the thing. Now, Sid, who, like I said, the girl that I was speaking to on the train at the beginning of this video, and she worked on Suspicious Mind with us. She knew a guy called Patrick Moore, and before you ask, he's not the astronomer. He's a very talented musician, and he said he would take a look at Guilty Conscience for us. So what I did is I did the assembly edit, fixed the sound as best I could, sent it off to Patrick, and Patrick emailed me back and he said, yeah, he said, this is great, I love this. He said, yeah, and I'd like to do the score. So that's what he did. He did the score for us. And that's the music that you'll hear playing throughout the film. The one piece of music that Patrick didn't do was Buyer Beware, the song that Jason's playing in the car, and obviously that comes back at the end. That's kind of a key moment in the script at the end as well, that disc and that music. And that was done by a band called Jenna's Revenge, who Gavin knew, and he approached them and said, you know, do you mind if we use this track in Guilty Conscience? And they said, no, of course, you know, that's great, do it, credit us with it, and that's fine. So that's what we did. We put it in the movie. We credited it to the band, and there it is. I think it fits very well, and it kind of, again, it sets off a key point in the story. You see it at the beginning of the film, and it's got relevance in the middle of the film, and it's got relevance at the end of the film. So that song kind of hit the key points in the story, if you know what I mean. So it's very, very important that that was in there. Yeah, we got the score back. Everything was sounding great. Everything looked great. And I thought, this is pretty good. So we put the film together. It came in at about 17 minutes. And I knew some guys at Fright Fest, and they were doing short films, and they were saying, you know, we're showing these short films on the screen at Fright Fest. Oh, great! Can I submit my film? Yes, it's got to be 12 minutes. Oh, well, my film's 17. Does that really matter? Yes, it does. Oh, okay. So what I did is I went back into the edit, and I looked at it, and I chopped a couple of scenes out. I think I chopped out the scene where Jason's in the bathroom upstairs and he's taking his pills, and he kind of sees the ghost downstairs in the kitchen. So I chopped that scene out, and I trimmed a couple of other scenes, just literally trimmed, like fine slicing, just to bring this thing in around to 12 minutes. And I made a 12-minute edit, and I really didn't feel the film anymore. I felt like the guts had been cut out of it. So anyway, I sent it off to Fright Fest, and they never ever got back to me anyway. So I thought, sod this now, I'm going back to my original cut. I'm going back to my original 17-minute cut. And so for a while, we put out this thing on the beginning, a disclaimer, which said this is the 17-minute director's cut. But it didn't matter because it was the actual film anyway. It wasn't a director's cut. It was just the way that it was. That's the way the film should have always been. So yeah, it didn't get shown at Fright Fest, and for a while it just, we just had the film. We didn't really know what to do with it. I approached a couple of people. There was a horror film festival that was taking place in America, and there was a lady called Marla Newborn, and she worked for Fangoria magazine, which is the biggest horror magazine in the world. And I just thought, well, I'll send it to Marla. And I sent it to Marla, and she was having difficulty getting this festival together. And she wrote back and she said, oh, I absolutely love that. I am a fan of Guilty Conscience. She said, I am a fan of Gary Mancini's Guilty Conscience, which was great. Having somebody from the biggest horror magazine in the world come back to you and say that they're a fan of your movie is amazing. So we were very, very pleased with that. And there was also a quote that Emily Booth sent us. We sent it to Emily Booth, who was the host of the Horror Channel back then, and she often turned up at Fright Fest. And I'll pop that quote up on the screen in a while so you can have a look at that and see what you think about that. So yeah, it was very, very good. It was, we were getting positive responses with it. And it got shown around a few places, and then in 2009 they held a little horror film festival down here with a company called, I think they were called HorrorCon UK or something like that. And they did something called 28 Hours Later, and it was just 28 hours of horror movies, short films, feature films and stuff like that people had submitted to them. And we'd actually gone away to Clitheroe, I think it was Clitheroe or somewhere like that, to go and do this ghost hunt with a friend of mine, Kieran O'Keefe, who worked for Most Haunted. He invited us up to this Most Haunted thing, and we went to see this, and actually it was in Morecambe. So we went to see the Most Haunted live, and it's while we were on the way up to Most Haunted live, I had a phone call from the people who ran the festival and said, hey, Guilty Conscience won, best short film last night. I was like, oh, that's amazing. So yeah, we won best short film for this 28 Hours Later film festival. Now, trying not to sound a little bit like Michael Caine, but not a lot of people know this, I actually wrote 2 sequels to Guilty Conscience. They were going to be short films again, but they would have followed the story of the Jason character and seen where he went after the end of that movie. Guilty Conscience 2 didn't really have a kind of a subtitle for it. It's just called Guilty Conscience 2 because we never really developed it past a series of notes and an outline. Would have seen Jason living in the afterlife, and he would have been very upset and bored. Everything that he thought was fact wasn't. Helen and Sean weren't actually dead. They weren't haunting him. And everybody's moved on with their lives, and him being in the afterlife is his own fault because it's his own guilty conscience. So he doesn't know what to do with himself. He hasn't got any friends anymore. He can't interact with his girlfriend, Kirsten. She's getting to kind of get her life together and move on with her life. And he just doesn't know what to do. So what he does is he goes and finds Helen and Sean. He finds out that they were actually pharmacists, and they actually work in this little local chemist of their own in the town. And he suddenly suspects that they might have given him the wrong pills. He was taking these obviously antipsychotics, and he thought, well, maybe they gave me the wrong pills. Maybe they gave me this thing which made me think that they would be ghosts anyway. So maybe it is their fault. Maybe they are to blame. So he has all these thoughts, these nasty thoughts running through his head. And what he decides to do is to kind of take revenge on them. So he puts the gas on in their pharmacist one night. And of course, they come back to the shop the next morning, flick the light switch on, boom, the shop goes up, blows up. Don't know how we were going to do that with special effects, probably After Effects or something. And now Helen and Sean are in the afterlife as well. And Jason's kind of, aha, I've got my revenge. And it turns out that there's a further development in the story that proves that Helen and Sean didn't actually give him the bad pills, but now he's stuck in the afterlife with these 2 irritating characters who he didn't like in the first place. So they're constantly following him around and say, oh, we don't know anybody else in the afterlife. We can be friends with you, Sean. Friends with you, Jason. We'll follow you around. So we would have had that black comedy element again and kind of taken it to the next step. And then there would have been a 3rd episode, which would have rounded everything up. Further suspicions, further guilty consciences taking place, but the whole thing would have rounded the story from the very beginning to the very end up. So we would have had like a 3-part saga, and once you see the whole thing, it would have been pretty funny. It's a shame we didn't get to kind of go ahead and do those ones. I did think about it for a little while, but we got on and made different films. I thought it was better for me to make different stories and to not keep going back to the well, if you know what I mean, and kind of find different stories with different characters and different moods to experiment with. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no way that we can actually make those sequels now because A, we're all older, and I've lost touch with pretty much everybody who's been in those films. I know that I spoke to Alina, who played Kirsten, the other day, and she's fantastic. So, you know, we're still in touch with Alina, but I don't know where Paul is, who played Jason. Sean, obviously he was played by Gavin. I don't know where he is. We're out of touch with him. And we haven't seen Alexandra for a long, long time, unfortunately. So yeah, getting the gang back together was pretty much impossible, unfortunately. So there will never be sequels to Guilty Conscience unless we reshoot the first film. And I'm kind of reluctant to do that because I think it works pretty well, and I don't think you can go back and reshoot it and do a remake and get the same kind of vibe out of it. So there you go. I will pop back with another video next week explaining how Alone came about, how we came up with the concept of it and how we shot it and everything like that. And there'll also be one for Suspicious Mind. The movie Suspicious Mind goes up on Monday, so if you want to go and check that out, I'd appreciate that. And again, continue to give the videos all the thumbs up. Actually, yeah, if you guys have enjoyed watching Guilty Conscience and if you enjoyed watching Alone, the two that have been up already, and of course Suspicious Mind when that opens, please do click on the thumbs up button. It will help me make more movies. Literally, it will help me make more movies. It will spread the word around YouTube. This will get even more likes, and like I say, it will just help people be aware of us, and it will help me, you know, go forward to be able to sell these new stories that I've got, and be able to get a cast and crew together off the back of these videos. Because if I can show them everybody's liked the videos and everybody's, you know, subscribed to the channel, are keen to see more, we're more likely to get people to come on board and help us and to get the new movies out to you as soon as we can. So if you guys can subscribe to the channel and hit the thumbs up button for every video that you watch on this channel, that'd be fantastic. It just literally helps us out, and doing that and subscribing is all free, so you're not going to lose anything. It's not going to take your soul away from you. There's a story, isn't it? Maybe I'll work on that. And it will just literally help us out. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to me rambling on about how I came about with Guilty Conscience, and for listening to the ideas that I have for Guilty Conscience 2 and 3. And I will be back very soon, like I say, with a video all about how we came about with the story and the filming of Alone, and I'll do another one for Suspicious Mind once that movie goes up. Yeah, thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll see you all very soon.